Welcome to Create More Intimacy, a podcast for men. I'm Elisa Stoddard, and I help successful men stop chasing sex and start building real connection so they finally feel close, connected, and wanted again. You know that feeling when you look at your wife and you think, what happened to us? It's not that you don't love her. I know you do. It's that everything feels harder now. The smile, the touches, the little moments that used to come up so easily. Now you have to work for them. And even when you try, it still feels like you're missing the mark. You remember when she used to laugh at your jokes, when she'd reach for your hand, when you could actually relax around her. Back then, you didn't have to think about every word before saying it. You weren't walking on eggshells, wondering which version of her you were going to get that day. So part of you just wants to go back to when she was softer, when she looked at you like you could do no wrong, when you felt like her hero instead of the guy who can't get it right. But here's the truth most men don't want to admit. You're not really trying to go back to her. You're trying to go back to who you were when you felt confident, wanted, and at ease. You miss that version of yourself, the one that didn't have to question everything, the man who didn't feel rejected and criticized or invisible, the man who believed he was enough. I get it. It makes perfect sense that you'd want to go back. But here's the thing. You cannot rebuild your relationship by chasing an earlier version of it. Because the version of who you were back then doesn't fit here anymore. Neither does the version of her. You've both changed. The problem is you've been hoping she'll go first, that she'll soften, open up, stop being so critical, and maybe then you'll feel safe enough to show up differently. But that's not how growth works. If you keep waiting for her to change before you do, you'll stay exactly where you are. Two people stuck in a version of your marriage that no longer exists. Maybe deep down you already know this. This episode is about what it really means to stop waiting for her to change and what happens when you decide to evolve instead of looking backward. Welcome to episode 26. You can't fix your marriage by fixing her. One of my clients once told me, I just want us to get back to how we used to be. He said it with this mix of frustration and sadness, like he was describing something he couldn't quite reach anymore. He'd been doing everything he thought would help, being more patient, less reactive, helping out more around the house even. But it didn't seem to change anything. His wife still felt distant, still seemed irritated, and every time she sighed or pulled away or gave him that look, it just felt like a punch. And he told me, I miss when she used to smile at me and when she looked at me like she actually liked me. He wasn't being dramatic here. He was just being honest. The truth is, he didn't just miss her. He missed how he felt around her back then. That calm, capable, desired guy, like he mattered. What he couldn't see was that he kept trying to recreate a moment in time, a version of their marriage that fit who they used to be. Back then when life was simpler, before all the stress and the responsibilities and the disappointments that quietly had been building up between the two of them. He was trying to rewind the story instead of writing a new chapter. And that's what so many men do. They think the answer is to get back to that earlier version of their relationship, to do the things that used to work, to act the way they used to act. But what worked then doesn't work now, because neither of you are those people anymore. She's different, and you are too. And the more you try to go backward, the more disconnected you both feel. It's not the past you're missing. It's the version of yourself who felt good back then. And that man can exist again, but it's not by rewinding. He has to be rebuilt here, now, in this version of your life. Another client came to me convinced he'd already done everything that was possible. He'd read the books, he'd listened to podcasts, he'd tried to communicate better, but every attempt still seemed to fall flat. And he told me, she just doesn't respond. She just looks at me like she's heard it all before. And she had. She'd heard the promises, the apologies, the I'll do better talks. What she hadn't seen was a change she could feel. Because what most men do when things feel off is that they instantly try to fix it. They go into action, like buying flowers or planning a date night or sending a text, just trying to be nice. Yeah, for a while that can help, but eventually she feels the difference between effort that's about results and effort that's about connection. He was doing things for her, but not with her. There's a difference. Meeting her here means being emotionally present, not just physically available. It means letting yourself be uncomfortable instead of trying to smooth everything over. It's sitting in that tension when she's irritated or disappointed instead of shutting down, getting defensive, or walking away. It's noticing when she's overwhelmed and saying, I know I've made this harder. I want to understand what's been missing for you. Instead of, well, what now? Can't we just move on? It's the small things that show her you're with her instead of trying to get past her. When men start doing that, their wives notice because she's not waiting for perfection. She's waiting to feel that she's not alone in this anymore. The irony is when you stop trying to go back to when it was easy and start showing up for what's real right now, that's when things can start to feel easier again. And it's not because she changes overnight, but because you're finally bringing your full self into the relationship. You're no longer performing, you are participating, and that's what builds trust. That's what brings the spark back. It isn't because you recaptured something old. It's because you created something new from this point. The hardest part about showing up differently is that at first it doesn't feel like it's working. Maybe you stay calm during an argument and she still seems angry. Maybe you stay calm during an argument and she still seems angry. You try to listen instead of defending yourself, and she pulls away. You open up, and she doesn't rush to meet you there. And every part of you wants to say, see, it doesn't matter what I do. But what's really happening is this. You are learning how to stop reaching for control and learning how to build connection. That's completely unfamiliar territory for most men because control feels safe. It's what you've been doing. You've been conditioned to solve problems, to fix what's broken, to take charge when something's off. But relationships don't work that way. You cannot logic your way back to love. Connection comes from presence, not performance. And presence requires uncertainty. It means showing up without knowing how she'll respond. It means letting go of the outcome long enough to actually feel what's happening between you. That's why so many men retreat when things get tense. It's not because they don't care, it's because they don't know how to stay present when they can't predict the results, because it feels like failure to them. But what if it's not failure? What if it's discomfort that actually is the beginning of something new? When you stop chasing her approval, you start noticing what's really going on inside of you, that fear of rejection, that anger that hides the hurt, the exhaustion of always trying to get it right. That's where real change begins. It's not really in doing more, it's in understanding yourself better. The truth is, your wife doesn't need a perfectly calm, endlessly agreeable version of you. She needs a grounded one, a man who can stay when things are hard, who can own his part without collapsing, who can care about her feelings without losing himself. That's what safety looks like to her. And ironically, that's what freedom feels like to you. When you can hold both, your truth and hers, you stop needing her to be who she used to be, and you start becoming the man she's been hoping to see. It's not some dramatic overnight transformation, I'll tell you that. It's a series of small moments where you start showing up differently. It's choosing to stay in the room when you want to walk away. It's listening when she's frustrated without rushing to solve, fix, defend. It's about being willing to say, "You're right, I can see how that hurt," even when it stings you to get that feedback. Forward looks like giving up on the illusion that peace comes from her calmness. It actually comes from your steadiness. One of my clients told me it felt awkward at first, like learning a totally different language. He was used to reacting and shutting down, but now he was learning to notice what was happening to him instead. And he started catching that split second before defensiveness showed up, and he chose to be curious instead of trying to control the situation. She didn't change immediately. For sure, she mistrusted what she was seeing and hearing. But she was still cautious, still guarded. But over time, she started to believe what she was seeing, because the consistency builds safety. Forward is when your words and actions finally match. When she stops having to read between the lines, when you start saying what's true, not what you think will keep the peace. It's when you stop needing her to validate you, because you have finally learned how to validate yourself. You can stop chasing approval and start creating connection. Forward is when you can sit across from her, even during a conflict, and not lose it, not lose yourself. When you can say, "I get it, I've made this hard and I want to do better," and mean it, not from guilt, not from keeping the peace, but from inner strength. That's what growth feels like. It's not weak. It's not submissive. It's grounded. It's clear. It's free. And here's the part most men don't expect. When you start showing up that way, she responds, because it's what she's been missing. She's not missing the romance as much as she's missing the partnership with you. She wants to feel like you are in it with her. Not that you're circling around the edges hoping that she'll come back. When you meet her there, everything changes. The tension starts to dissolve. The connection starts to rebuild, and you start to recognize yourself again. And not as the man you were way back then, but the man that you've become, this man you're proud of. You might be listening to this and thinking, "Oh yeah, I've been patient. I've tried to stay calm. I've done everything I can think of." And you want to know what? I believe you. You probably have. But what I want you to hear is that this isn't about trying harder. It's about showing up differently. Trying harder keeps you chasing the same result. Remember the one that brought you to this point that you don't like? Showing up differently changes the entire equation. It's not about earning her back. It's about becoming someone who can be fully present in the relationship again. When you stop performing and start participating, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Yourself, a new version of yourself. You can stop reacting to her moods and start paying attention to your own. You can stop keeping score and start noticing the patterns that got you here. You can start realizing how much of your energy has gone into trying to not fail instead of trying to connect. And somewhere in that shift, the temperature drops in the relationship and things begin to quiet down. It's not because everything's perfect, but it is because you're finally aligned with yourself again. That's when change starts to last. Not when she believes it, but when you do. The moment you stop trying to go back, you open the door for something better than what you had before. Most men think they're fighting for their marriage, but what they're really fighting for is relief. They're trying to stop the discomfort, the perceived rejection, the coldness, the silence. And I get it. It's painful. It's painful to live in that space, to feel like no matter what you do, it's never enough. But here's the real reason nothing changes. You've been trying to fix your marriage without facing yourself. You want the warmth and the affection and the laughter again, but you don't want the part where you have to look at what's been lost and why. You don't want to sit in the uncertainty of, what if she never changes? Because that thought terrifies you. So you go back to doing, trying, proving, avoiding. You try to make it up to her. You try to stay out of her way. You keep hoping she'll finally see you're trying. And when she doesn't, you feel defeated. But what you're missing is that real intimacy isn't built on proving. It's built on presence. And presence is uncomfortable, especially if you haven't been doing it or don't know how. It asks you to stop performing long enough to feel what's actually happening. The loneliness, the fear, the frustration, the shame. Most men think that facing those emotions will make them weak, so they push them aside. But the opposite is true. When you stop running from them, you finally start understanding yourself, and that's where strength is born. Because now you're no longer trying to control her, you're learning to lead yourself. You start realizing that connection isn't something she gives you, it's something you create through how you show up. And that's the real shift, the one that changes everything. When you lead yourself with honesty and courage, you become the kind of man she can finally trust again. You're not perfect for sure, but you are being real. If you take one thing from this episode, let it be this. You can't go back. In fact, you don't want to go back. But you can go forward. And what's ahead can be better than what you had before. What you're missing isn't who she used to be. It's who you used to be. And that part of you isn't gone. He's just been buried under all the pressure and the frustration and the quiet heartbreak of feeling unwanted for too long. When you start showing up differently, not to fix, but to connect, that man comes back. Not the version of yourself who had to earn love, but the version who knows how to live it. And yes, it feels good when your wife notices, when she softens and the tension lifts, when the warmth starts to return. But nothing compares to how you feel when you know you're showing up as the man that you actually want to be. That confidence changes everything. And it's not because you finally got the response you wanted. It's because you no longer need it to feel whole. It's the kind of relationship that lasts, one that's built on alignment and not performance. Where you're not walking on eggshells, you're standing on solid ground. If this conversation resonates with you, you might want to go back and listen to episode 17, Why You Keep Losing It. That episode pairs beautifully with what we've talked about today, and it will help you see how emotional steadiness creates connection, both with her and with yourself. Because in the end, it's never really about getting her back. It's about coming home. to yourself. Take care. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being here. If something in this episode hit home, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more men find the support they need. And if you are ready to get help or take the next step, you'll find the link to book a free call in the show notes. I'll see you next time.